One of the things that we all want to do in the world to be the best version of ourselves is to give ourselves permission to do it, to let our light shine in the world. Now, someone in our lifetime who did that most spectacularly and had a global impact as a result of letting their light shine in the world and be all that they were here to be was, of course, Diana, Princess of Wales, Princess Diana, who became empowered, who became a global icon, who has had more impact in our world than we knew at the time, Subsequently, we can see it. Truly the Queen of Hearts. Now, someone who had a big part to play in her liberation and being all that she was here to be in this world in this lifetime is with us today. And I'm so thrilled that he's taken time out of his schedule, because he is actually working today, but this is his lunch hour. So he's joined us in his lunch hour. And that's Mr. Stewart Pearce, who was Diana's voice coach and presence coach. And he's here to talk to us today about how we can do the same. And his book is sensational, Diana, the Voice of Change. If you haven't got it, guys, go get it, like order it today. I will put a link to it in our Facebook group today. It really is sensational. It's not a simple biography of Diana. It's actually lessons and inspiration from Diana and from Stewart Pearce, who is one of the leading voice coaches in the world. So Stewart, over to you.
Wow. Well, hello, everybody. Fiona, I've never seen you in the flesh. And here I am.
Oh, my goodness.
What a beautiful, beautiful being you are. What a beautiful lady you are. So, I mean, do you radiate? God, do you radiate? Look at the way that you're igniting. And there you are in this beautiful room. Where are you?
I'm in my house in Somerset that I manifested, We'll talk about that later today, everyone. But I'm in this place that I manifested. Yeah. I am. This is my house in Somerset.
Well, I feel as though I'm there with you. So this is absolutely remarkable. Through the miracle of social media, here we are communicating through Zoom. And so what would you like to know?
Well, I mean, look, I keep seeing you in the press, for goodness sakes, every single day. I think it's because Diana, the Voice of Change, is coming out in the States. So you're getting like all of this press.
Yes, it's being published on June 15th in New York City. And so, yeah, my whole team, including a wonderful New York PR, is getting me into press. And of course, little did we know that the brouhaha would come around over the last few days that it has, of the situation in relation to the BBC Panorama interview with Martin Bashir, and how we can see that the construct of it was actually based on deceit. What's extraordinary, of course, is that although we need to be very aware of the fact that calumny was created, and we need to say no to all of these treacheries that are taking place in the world, such as that, what's come out, of course, is the extraordinary radiance of Diana. One principal feature is that she seems to have brought the two boys together. Meaning Harry and William, because according to British press, there was a great deal of rift between them because they were disagreeing with one another, like brothers do. I had a disagreement with my own brother last evening. It's just that the British press blew it out of all containment. So we're beginning to return to the immortal nature of who Diana was and how she is still with us in spirit, to illuminate the conviction of all the wonders that we're trying to create in the world. And one of the things that she and I looked into was to be the person that she truly wanted to be. How could she begin to develop the physical aspect of her beauty and her presence so that she could again ignite the radiance that she felt that she was being communicated with or was in connection with, so that other people could feel the extraordinary nature of her love, and thereby be ignited themselves in their own loving processes, recognizing that feeling is the language of the soul, and that so much of our lives have become dedicated purely to the doing of intellectualization. And so, bearing in mind that I was going to come and speak to you today, I thought it would be interesting to try and find a way of just synthesizing in three very, very simple principles of how we can begin to ignite our own lives so that our physical presence becomes full of those wonderful degrees that we love, meaning we feel delight, we feel joy, we feel free, we feel well-being, we feel expandedness, we feel as large as the universe. Therefore, we are capable of achieving all of the wonders that we want to achieve, bearing in mind that we're here for one simple process, which is to optimize our creativity full of love and joy.
I love that. Can I ask you a question? Was that her conscious intent then? At some point, was she so flipping evolved and so smart and generous that she set that out as her intention? I know she talked about being the Queen of Hearts, but in all honesty, beyond that phrase, was there a true desire to be of service and to spread love in the world?
Yes, and I feel that we saw this in her as she moved through the latter stages of her life. Not that we knew that this was so then, we do now. But, you know, for example, she had a very remarkable experience when she visited Mother Teresa. The first time she visited Mother Teresa, whom she'd had this correspondence with, so this was the first time that they were going to be together in flesh. Mother Teresa was actually whisked off to Rome because Diana visited her in Calcutta, because Mother Teresa was very unwell, and the Pope apparently organized for her to be flown to Rome to undergo some form of surgery. And so when Diana appeared at the hospice, all of Mother Teresa's nuns took her into the chapel by herself, sat her in the middle of the circle as they surrounded her, and they chanted the Ave Maria to her and the Lord's Prayer. And in the middle of the chant, she experienced, in her own words, a feeling of grace that came into her, which illuminated the conviction of all the little intimations that she'd received over the years about how she could serve on a level of compassion, a level of egalitarianism, a level of being activated within major charities to spread the light of love and compassion and empathy and inclusivity and all of those things even further and further. And she, you know, she spoke about it with tears in her eyes. It was a very remarkable moment of shifting. Did she consider herself to be evolved? No, she considered herself to be evolving. So she was still very aware of all of the challenges that she had experienced, but at one time had literally suppressed her energy. And of course, she had found ways of being able to express a lot of the challenge and confusion that she was experiencing by moving into self-harming, into bulimia, and also into the possibility of suicide. But she'd had those experiences, and she used them as points of identification of how she could actually transcend, meaning alchemically identify what the negative was and choose to move it into a positive so that she could move forward living the fabric and the fiber of what the positive gesture was all about, rather than just being consumed by the negative. Because in all of our lives, nothing is singular, everything is plural. It's just that we get caught up in the confusion of shall I, shan't I, will I, won't I? And what Diana was beginning to discover is that if she could actually formulate a sense of stillness within her being, to feel detached, observe, and to feel still, that she automatically felt grounded.
Where do you start with this? You know, what if people haven't had that incredible experience, epiphany, almost like a spiritual experience, obviously, that Diana had? I never knew about that. And thank you so much for sharing that. It's incredible. What do we do? Do we set our intention, as she did, to service, to be of the greatest service? Is that really the key, Stewart?
Well, if that's our thing, yes. But that's just one degree of many degrees that we may choose. I mean, the infinite possibility of what we're being given in the embracing of all that you're sharing with us is that thought creates reality. So what is relevant or appropriate, what is relevant or appropriate for us at this moment in our lives. How do we feel that we can live the greatest dream of our being? What creative aspect of our being do we want to ascend to or to aspire to? And then the second degree, having decided what that is, and it could be service, or it could be having a party, or it could be getting a new job, or it could be divorcing one relationship and finding another relationship that is infinitely more equitable with where we are at that time. Once we've actually chosen what that thing is, what we have to decide is, well, when I've achieved it, what am I going to feel?
Yeah.
And when we actually charge the whole of our beings with, I'm going to feel absolutely amazing. I'm going to feel that I'm using every single God-given talent that I have and lots more. I'm going to feel the whole of my energy field expanding, and I'm going to feel that I'm using myself in the greatest vision of who I feel myself to be right at this time. Not what I am, but who I am. And that is a magical unification with divine intelligence. We stop thinking in purely mortal terms and we start thinking in immortal terms, because all that I've mentioned are the degrees, the feeling states that actually the universe is made of. There is infinite abundance within the universe. There is no scarcity. There is infinite joy within the universe. I had an interesting client a couple of weeks ago who's one of the world's leading quantum physicists, who teaches at Harvard, at Princeton, at Cambridge. And of course, as a result of COVID, most of his work is online. And his predicament was that nobody was coming to his classes online. And so a number of his colleagues had said, well, you know, why don't you go and see this communications expert? His name is Stewart, Pearce, and blah, 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 blah. So he came along and I said, well, why don't you just present to me a moment of what you would do in a class? You know, you could be talking about quantum physics, you could be talking about quantum foam, whatever. So he started presenting and he delivered it in this really monotonic voice that was really sort of boring and frozen. And it went like on like this for about 3 minutes. And I said, okay, so let's stop there. Let's have a pause. Yeah. Okay, well done. How did that feel? He said, I think it's a bit dull. And I said, yeah, it was interminably dull, actually. So what I'd love to do is to try and find some way of reframing this experience. For example, tell me, when did you discover this fascinating passion that you have with the cosmos? And he paused, and I could see he was digging deep. Then he said, you know, when I was 7, my mother and father, who were academics, I was a single child, moved to another university city in the United States, because my father gained promotion. And so did my mother. And I lost all of my friends. And I felt immensely insecure and really uncentered. I mean, he was 7, you know, whatever 7-year-olds feel at that time. He was trying to define. So his father gave him a telescope. And his bedroom was at the top of the house. And he pushed his bed against a window so that he could lie in bed and with the telescope look up at the night sky. And what he saw electrified him with such passion that he decided in that moment that he was actually going to expand that curiosity and discover more and more and more about the cosmos in its nature, its fabric, and its entire mechanistic reality. And so I said, well, why don't you, when he told this story, he became literally radiant and electrified. So I said, well, why don't you deliver all of your lectures like this? I mean, have you ever told your students what gave you the inspiration to be a quantum? He said, no, I would never do that. And I said, why not? Because don't you see how you're going to inspire? For example, what is a supernova? And he said, and then he went again into this rather monotonic delivery about the cosmic constitution of a supernova. And I said, okay, well, that's one way of expressing it. But as far as I'm concerned, a supernova is a divine orgasm. And he burst into peals of laughter. And he said, I could never say that. And I said, why not? Why not? I think it's an amazing image to think that God was having a divine orgasm because we all love our orgasms. And so, and so he started doing this. I mean, obviously, he found his own translatable vocabulary for what that was all about, because there was certain, political correctness to fulfill, whatever. And as a result of that, suddenly all of his lectures were full of the students that he wanted to see. Now, the point was that he actually had found a way of being able to conduct himself into the vital aspect of feeling is the language of the soul. What is going to electrify you? What is going to inspire you? What is going to will live through you? And what we also noted, just to finish that story, was that he'd been living most of his life right up here, everything was, but it took on this metallic, monotonic delivery. I had him really center his voice and move into his heart and to speak from his heart. And as a result of that, the story overload became absolutely embodied, enlivened, enriched, and enlightened with the inspirational light of the true magic of his imaginative processes.
Oh, wow. I love it, Stewart. Thank you for sharing that, because that's really what's been coming up today, the theme of today, that if you've got to get aligned, you got to get aligned to what motivates you. If you're trying to make something work and your heart's not in it, the wheels are going to come off and you're not going to be fully alive. So thank you so much for that.
And all of this, I noticed one or two lovely comments in the chat box that all of this information, obviously not the story about the quantum physicist, because this book was finished writing about 18 months ago. But there are lots of stories that are all about Diana in similar degrees and how she ignited her radiance.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me with you today. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to leave you.
No, go. Get yourself a sandwich.
I'm caught up in all of this thing to do with Harry and William. So I have to talk to a journalist with the New York Times.
Oh, darling, of course you do. We're very lucky to have had you. Honestly, thank you so much for being here.
Lots of love to you all.
Speak soon. Take care, my darling. Bye. Bye, Stewart. Thank you. Bye.